Greetings friends, and welcome to Tales from the Tabletop, the video series where I bring you anecdotes of adventure from Warhammer to D&D and everything in between. Let's begin. Today's first story is a heist story from Anonymous, and this is a lot of fun. Here we go. The players are clearing a bandit lair. They're going through room by room, dropping guys SWAT style after breaching the door. After the first room, they cause too much noise. The canteen next door has gone silent. A player peeks under the door to see that they've overturned the tables and have crossbows at the ready. The party decides to breach from two separate locations and take them by surprise. The elf fighter goes to the kitchen door. The human cleric and rogue prepare to breach from the main corridor. But they realize they don't have any way of making sure that their breaches are in unison. The players come up with the idea to count to 60 and then breach. I make the players close their eyes and all count to 60 in their heads and silently raise their hands when they hit 60. If they raise their hands close enough to the same time, I will give the elf his flanking surprise attack turn. What follows is the most intense 60 seconds of silence we have ever had at the table. Players are all deathly silent, trying to count as best they can without being distracted, and they freaking do it. They pull it off. All of them raise their hands within a second or two of each other. The encounter goes fantastically thanks to that surprise round. My players really enjoyed this way of dealing with it and want more of it in the future. Well done, DM. I love this kind of out-of-the-box thinking coming from DMs. Not everything's got to be a dice roll. There's other ways to do stuff, and it's so much more compelling at the table, especially when you're no longer relying on your character sheet and chance, but you're relying on your table mate next to you. Brilliant. Beautiful. Our next story comes from Professor Toast, and Professor Toast writes, "The party had a really tense social encounter with a powerful mage, and they were trying to negotiate their way out. The wizard player's familiar was sent to retrieve a magical item to help the party escape, but the mage noticed and used Arcane Eye to keep track of it. Then, the monk player created a mind link with the wizard. At the table, these two players started to swap little notes between them as the rest of the party continued to negotiate with the mage. This is something I allow my players to do when they're murmuring or having telepathic conversations. But I was getting annoyed with them. They swapped notes for a solid 5 minutes without taking part in any of the wider conversation. So, I had the mage use Detect Thoughts to enter their telepathic conversation. At the table, I held out my hand to the players and told them to fork over their notes. Reluctantly, they did. As I leafed through the small stack, note after note contained nothing more than crude drawings, except for the last one. The very first note that they passed, and it read, "If we force the mage to use Detect Thoughts, he'll have to break his concentration from the Arcane Eye spell." They were right, of course, and they did succeed, and that's what made it hurt all the more. No one likes to be duped, least of all your dungeon master. This next one comes from Bridge Tower Throwaway, and it is titled, "A Tale of Two Towers and a Bridge and a Barbarian." This is a story about how, in the middle of a dungeon, we lost a party member and had one of the strangest conversations I have ever witnessed. Now, picture this. Our party, the monk, the wizard, the rogue, and the barbarian, are traversing a dungeon where the intent is that we climb one tower, cross over to another tower, and then fight our way back down. Before we go up, we see a bridge between the two towers. Wonderful. But once we reach the top, we face a roadblock. Someone has cut out the slats of the bridge, and now only the two support ropes for the bridge remain. Being our resident catboy, I ask if I can get across without a check. "No problem," says the DM, and I go to the other side first to make sure it is safe. With my thumbs up, the wizard is next. He casts Levitate and pulls himself across the gap using the rope. Another easy victory. The barbarian says he wants to go last. So the rogue makes some tricky athletics checks to sidle across the ropes from one side to the other, and with some help from the wizard, he makes it across. But then, something completely surreal begins.
I want to swing across.
What?
I grab onto one rope and I cut it, and then I swing across.
Yeah, that's, you'll fall pretty far. And you'll build a lot of momentum on your way down.
It'll be fine.
Flabbergasted, the DM draws a small diagram of what exactly will happen. Since the gap is 100 feet, the barbarian will fall 100 feet and slam with great speed into the side of the other tower.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I want to do this.
So the DM guesses that this will deal about as much damage as a 100-foot fall would. Nobody here's a physicist, and it sounds good enough to us. The barbarian grabs the rope, rages, and swings. There's just one final hiccup. We're only level 3. Even with rage, a combination of some damage we took on the way up the first tower and a very unlucky roll of the dice is more than enough to knock the barbarian out cold. He slams into the stone wall at speed, and he falls unconscious. He lets go of the rope and then falls down. All the way down. We all slowly turn to look at the barbarian player's face, but instead of being scrunched up in anger, he seems confused.
I'm sorry, what?
You hit the side of the wall. You fell and you're most likely dead.
Huh? But how did that happen?
The rope, it swings, and the pivot point is on the other tower, so you come down 100 feet. The DM re-explains and doodles out a diagram to show. The barbarian says,
I still don't get it, but I guess that's what would happen. Whatever.
The barbarian then gets up, grabs his vape, and steps outside as the DM calls for a 10-minute break. After everyone's settled down, we discuss if we want to roll that back at all, since the barbarian clearly didn't understand how dangerous the situation was. But as Barbarian sits down, he simply says,
It's whatever. I guess my dude was also confused in character. I'll just roll up another guy.
So the party, flabbergasted as to what the barbarian was thinking, and unwilling to go on one man down into this treacherous second tower, decide to head back home to try again some other time. This time with a mysteriously trustworthy fighter that they met at a bar. The group went on fine after that, but it did totally throw off the session, and most of the DM's plans for that entire storyline, since the barbarian's specific backstory was heavily involved. To this day, it still confuses me not only how the barbarian never understood what was going on, but also how weirdly chill he was about it. Alright, I'm gonna take some bets. Who here thinks that the player was just kind of sick of playing his barbarian and wanted a new character? Anyone? He probably didn't go into the session like that. He probably went into the session just a little bit loosey-goosey, a little foolhardy, a little not fully paying attention, clearly. And when it's like, ooh, I think your guy is dead. Yeah, I don't think he shed too many tears. I think he was done barbarianing, but that's just me. If you have an alternate theory, that's what a comment section is for. This last story is so delightful that I am putting it in my back pocket. I'm going to use this story for something in the future. This story is anonymous, and it is titled, We Tried to Be Good Necromancers, and managed to mess it up so hard that we became the villains. Drow were invading a city, and we were trying to stop them using an ancient nexus of necromantic power. We created an army of the undead, 2,000 strong with 3 large flesh golems at their center. Then we exhausted said nexus to use the power to teleport this great army to the wrong city. So, A massive undead army literally pops up out of nowhere during the King's Parade in the center of the wrong town. Everybody starts screaming. The 5 players in necromantic robes at the head of this army start trying to calm people down by screaming at them. Remain calm! All is well! Be calm! Peace! Which, of course, just made things worse. We completely flunked every diplomacy and intimidate roll because none of us had those skills. We get attacked by guards and defend ourselves using non-lethal chain lightning, making the populace even more terrified. A local secret death cult took this to be a sign from their undead god and started summoning even more undead while whispering prayers unto us 5 necromancers. Before we knew it, the city was burning. The guard had been decimated, and there had been thousands of casualties. All 5 of us necromancers were standing in the center of town next to a desecrated fountain, avoiding each other's gaze.
So, yep. That was a thing. Yeah, it was. So what now? Well, I could use a drink.
The tavern is on fire.
Oh. I don't suppose we could just apologize and explain the whole misunderstanding?
You know, I don't think they'd buy it.
I am the necromancer.
And that's the last story of this video today. I gotta tell you, I am an absolute sucker for comedies of errors, and this definitely fits that bill. And if you have a catastrophe that your party perpetrated unwittingly, unknowingly, I would love to hear your story, especially if you think you can top this one. And if you think you can, please, oh please, drop it in the comments below. I would love to read that. The artwork for today is an illustration that I've made for my own role-playing game called Battle Jacket. And this is a character class called the Technomancer. And if you would like more information about Battle Jacket and want to hear more about this game, then please go to my website and check my production blog, coffeeandhate.biz, click blog at the top. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, thank you for listening, and may your dice roll high and never be cursed.